Welcome back to Off Ball Takes. This is your host, Yarby Laws, and this is my co-host.
Christopher Wells.
We appreciate all the support on our recent content, and before we do get started, please don't forget to like and subscribe and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at the OPT Podcast for more content and updates.
Yes, so we are back at it again with a new episode, and the first thing we got to address, welcome back, Jayson Tatum. It's been less than 10 months, which is, I believe, the fastest that an NBA player has come back from a torn Achilles. Of course, we've had, a handful of over the years, right? You have Durant, of course, right? And I think he took, 2 seasons or so, or he had an extended time off because of the bubble, and then the season started in December, right? You had Dominique Wilkins, right, over 30 years ago in the early 90s, right? He was kind of one of the first ones to have that injury and actually come back. But this is a big step forward for Jayson Tatum because, when people were talking and addressing his return, right, there were people who cover the Celtics or who talk about the Celtics, who all year were kind of hinting at, yeah, Tatum's going to come back. Tatum's going to come back. Even though a lot of us were like, he's not coming back. He's not coming back to play. There's no way, right? He tore his Achilles in May, right? You're usually not coming, like Halliburton tore his in June. He's not coming back at all. There's no way this happens, right? And then it gets closer and closer. And then, we're all kind of thinking like, should he come back? This could be really risky. But he came back, and honestly, it was better than what I expected. He played 27 minutes. He did shoot 6 for 16. He started 0 for 5, and then I think he hit his next 6 shots. He scored 15 points, had 12 rebounds, 7 assists, a steal. So it was almost kind of emblematic of a Jayson Tatum game, right? It's not the Jayson Tatum necessarily because we know at his best, right before he got hurt, he was a top 5 player on both ends of the floor, right? But just the fact that he came right in and basically did a little bit of everything was pretty impressive, honestly, right? Like even the 7 assists where like he's able to just quickly make the reads and just pass it to guys for easy buckets. Like that's not an easy thing to do. Like if you ever consider, say you played basketball, right? And then say you go like, I don't know, 3 weeks and you don't touch a basketball at all, right? If you come back and you try to play full court 5v5, it's going to be rough, right? Because like your shot's going to be off, your timing's going to be off, decision making's going to be off. This guy hasn't played in over 10 months in an NBA game. He's an NBA player. So, playing against bigger, faster, stronger, more physical athletes. So I thought that was super impressive. I was really encouraged by the fact that early on he tried to dunk and get a poster. He missed it. But just him doing that already, I was like, okay, that's pretty good. Got a put back dunk as his first bucket. Got a couple of step back threes, contested ones, got a few drives. And like I already mentioned, had 12 rebounds, 7 assists. He fit right in. That was kind of the funny thing, right? Because everybody had kind of been talking about, how is he going to come back? Is it going to take away from like Jaylen Brown? He's going to have to adjust to whose team it is. It's not really something to worry about. We've seen Jayson Tatum before. He's an unselfish player. He can pretty much fit in anywhere. It's one of the things that we like about him. It's why he's one of the best players in the world, right? So now it's just kind of him getting his feet back under him, continuing to improve every game. I don't know how long it'll take. But if he can be anything close, like if he could be 80% Jayson Tatum, like you have to take the Celtics seriously. I don't think people are going to, they're not going to be viewed as a favorite. I don't think they're going to be viewed as the top team to come out of the Eastern Conference, but they're at least going to have a shot, right? Just, based off of how the Eastern Conference looks, right? Detroit, they've had some injuries now. Now they've had a few bad losses, right? Like they got destroyed by the Spurs. They had, I think this before we got on, right? Like Cade was out. Asor Thompson now has a bad ankle, so he's out for a while. They lost to Brooklyn. So their stranglehold on the East isn't quite as strong anymore. The Celtics are the 2 seed, a game and a half ahead of New York, right? Who's also been playing very well. You still have Cleveland. But those are kind of your 4, right? Like, I mean, we talked about that. There are other teams in the East where it's like they've been playing better. Like Orlando's been playing better as of late. Miami's been playing better as of late. And, we'll get to some of those teams later. But, how did you feel about him coming back? Because like I said, I was pretty encouraged just by the fact that, it was still rusty, but just you could at least see, at least offensively, right? A lot of semblance, a lot of like visions of Jayson Tatum, right? Not the Jayson Tatum, but just like a version where it's like, wow, this is like a positive, winning play. He's not like, I didn't think he was going to take away, but it is a big adjustment. Like, no, like people are right about like, at the very least, it's an adjustment to having a guy come back. But just the fact that it's like, okay, now the minutes are going to be set up where, you look at the minute spread and it's like, okay, now Baylor Shireman or Ugo Gonzalez, right? They go from like starters playing like almost 30 minutes or whatever. Some of those guys to like now they're coming off the bench. Peyton Pritchard like was a starter. Now he's coming off the bench. Stuff like that. Vucevic fractured his ring finger, but he's supposed to be out maybe a month. I mean, I don't think he's been that great of a Celtics addition, but like it's still a guy that you don't want to necessarily lose. But what did you think of Jayson Tatum's comeback and return?
Oh boy, I was scared initially
Hmm.
going into it because we talked about it multiple times on the pod. We both thought he had no business, even really attempting to come
Yeah.
back. There was no need, right? And honestly, we even thought before the season started, we were like, this is a gap year for Boston, right? They're not going to be
Yes.
that good. But it turns out, they're one of the best teams in the league. Shout out to the coaching staff. Shout out to all the players that have stepped up. Jaylen Brown, Kata as well. So that team is actually really fun to watch. But adding Jayson Tatum back, it felt perfect, right? It felt seamless. There were no issues in my opinion, right? Took him a while to find his groove, but like you said, it was very encouraging that his first bucket back was a freaking putback dunk. Obviously, gingerly came down, granted, as he should, but it still gave me a lot of confidence in terms of what he can be, going into the postseason, because I think that's the end game goal, right? He's a winner, he's a do it all kind of guy. And like you said, throughout, this entire game, you saw him just kind of fit in and be whatever they needed him to be in that moment, and on a play-by-play basis, right? If they needed him to get a tough bucket in the corner, step back three, he's used to it. He's able to attempt that. The shot looked fluid, everything looked good. Like you said, the rebounds, nothing new. Assists, nothing new. I think it opens up a whole new conversation for Boston, right? Because now we're talking about a team that's been so great throughout the regular season, that's so disciplined in what they do on both ends of the floor, and you add in their other superstar who they've been missing the entire season. I think it changes the scope of the Eastern Conference a little bit. I'm not going to say they're the favorites, but I think they can give anybody in the East a run for their money, especially the New York Knicks and Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, I mean they're number two offense in the league this year, sixth in defense, second in net rating, right? Which is kind of wild. And again, like that's the nice thing is now you can come in and it makes everybody else's lives easier because like teams are still going to guard Jayson Tatum like he's Jayson Tatum. I mean, because again, in some of the threes he made, like those are heavily guarded shots, and like his ability to drive and kick, right, fits right in with what they're going to do. And now it's like, okay, now Derek White doesn't have quite as much responsibility, right? Jaylen Brown doesn't have quite as much responsibility on his shoulders, right? Like Neemias Queta gets even more easy baskets because now you have to put an extra defender on Jayson Tatum. And like I said, all those other guys now move to, you know, lower roles. And like those are roles that they're fine with because they've done it before, because they did it. Some of those guys were there when the Celtics won the title. Not all of them, but like Pritchard was there, Hauser was there, right? Some of these guys are newer additions, but they fit right in with what the Celtics want to do. So I mean, like you said, it opens up a whole possibility of things for the Celtics to be able to do. Like I said, my pick going into the year to come out of the East was the Knicks. I actually have been encouraged by what I've seen from them lately,
Agreed.
so that's a good thing. But like you said, the Celtics can give a lot of these teams a run for their money, even a team like a Detroit, right? Because we all have concerns about a team like the Pistons in terms of what they could look like in the playoffs. I mean, I think it's still, you still need Tatum to be, like a good version of himself. Like, like I think he would probably need to be better than what we saw last night, which wasn't even necessarily bad. It's just, you need Tatum to be, like close to a star level player, which might be a bit much to ask this year, but funny enough, good thing they didn't listen to us because, like I said, we both thought this was a gap year. I'm pretty sure we took the under.
Mm-hmm.
They've already gotten past it. I'm pretty, because it was around like 40 or something like
Yeah.
that. It was in the low 40s, so they're either really close to it or they've already gone past it. And we, like I said, we thought this was a gap year, and it hasn't. They've basically been right there. Yeah, it was at 42 and a half. So they're they're right there. They're gonna pass that.
Mm-hmm.
They're already at 42 wins. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, shout out to them because like I said, I did not see this coming from the Celtics
Me neither,
this
man.
year
Wow.
at all. And honestly, it's probably for the best, right? Because I mean, like with the way Jaylen Brown was playing and the way the other guys were contributing, like you just probably weren't gonna be able to tank at this point. It's just
No.
weird because they started off the season kind of weird, right? Like, but then they just kicked it into high gear and they haven't looked back. So, like
Yeah.
I said, super impressive, from them. So we'll see. Do you want to? Yeah, I guess Trae Young made his Wizards debut.
Yeah.
Is a little bit different because he didn't have like a season-ending Achilles tear, and he
Sure.
did play earlier this
Sure.
year. But if you want, you could mention Trae Young's debut for the Washington Wizards. I know he played like 19 minutes or so,
Yeah.
but just putting him out there. What'd you think of
Yeah,
him?
I mean, yeah, it wasn't anything like spectacular for sure, but I think you could see, the seeds kind of being planted for what Washington wants to do, right? And like if you even watch the game, I know a lot of people really couldn't, but you know, I think you saw good things from Trey, obviously, in terms of his first bucket being a pretty much wide open layup, but we already know that he can get to the rim. We already know that he's got a great layup package, but the inefficiency from outside I think was a little concerning. Granted, it's first game in a long time. But look at who was, you know, out on the floor with him. I don't think it was,
Right,
the best case scenario for this Washington
right.
Wizards team. Obviously, no Anthony Davis, but you did have Julian Reese, who actually had a monster game, so you can't even call him bad. But these guys are, not necessarily, the starting lineup, right? Bilal Coulibaly, Trey Johnson, Leaky Black, and Julian Reese alongside Trae Young was the starting lineup. So not necessarily the Wizards A team, but you definitely did see, his ability to, like I said, get to the rim and set up guys, because I think that was the interesting part. Obviously, a lot of people don't watch the Wizards, but if you do, like me, Bilal Coulibaly's jump shot might be one of the most broken shots in the NBA. But honestly, he shot with confidence, and I like that, right? And most
Mhm.
of the shots that he took were off of Trae Young, finding him in the corner or something like that. So that's the kind of effect that I would want Trae Young to have, right? He's a point guard that can, get guys, the ball right where they want it, and right on the seams, whatever the case may be. Like he knows how to pass, and that's I think the main draw here. It would have been nice to have seen him and Anthony Davis, or even him and Alex Sarr, but unfortunately it wasn't necessarily what we wanted. But at the end of the day, it was a cool 19 minutes, like you said. It wasn't, like I said, anything spectacular,
Yeah.
but it's good to kind of see him back out there.
Yeah, I mean, again, like I think I'm gonna assume he's gonna be on a minutes restriction the rest of the way.
Oh
I
yeah,
think
it's
AD's
part of the
supposed to be
tank.
yeah, I think AD's supposed to be reevaluated in a couple weeks, so
Yeah,
we'll
right.
see if yeah, we'll see if he comes back. We don't know. We can't say anything yet, but just in general, yeah, like you're right about the value of the passing, the playmaking. His 3-point shot has trended downwards the last few seasons, and that is something to think about. I mean, the good news is like you have other guys like Trey
Oh
Johnson,
yeah.
can is definitely a great 3-point shooter already as a rookie. You got
Mhm.
Alex Sarr, right, who's shot threes really well in his second year, right?
Yep.
He's been awesome in his second year. Shout out to him. I had him as the number one
Oh
pick.
yeah.
Just, knocked him out there.
Take
But
take your victory lap. A lot of
yeah,
people were
so
hating on him,
yeah,
including me.
I mean Pascal's also really good. So it's
I
like
agree.
but yeah, but just in general,
I
like
had Zachary Ricochet number
I'm
one.
gonna take it and run with it.
Yeah,
So
please do, because
uh,
I had Ricochet number one, and that is not
yeah,
looking
I
good.
think he comes off the bench. But either way, that's neither here nor there.
Agreed. Yeah.
Regardless, yeah, I think you can see the value there, and that's kind of the thing. Like you said, they didn't have their full squad, so you just gotta put it all together, right? Like
Sure.
that's gonna be the value that Trey Young can bring. And again, like we all know, with all these tanking teams, like they're gonna have a top pick to go with all these other guys, and like then kind of going into next season, like you'll kind of get to see, and you'll have like a good idea of like, all right, who's the core, who's the foundation, right? Because some of these guys, right, have been there for a little bit. Like Koulibaly is like in what, year three,
Yep.
four,
Three.
or
I
something
think
like.
it's three.
Yeah, so that's a guy who's been there a little bit longer than some of these other guys, right? So like you said, he's had seemingly trended downwards, but he could be a guy where the addition of Trey Young could actually increase his value, and maybe he is more likely to stay. I don't know, but like he could be a guy that maybe is more likely to stay, or maybe they get a top pick and then draft somebody, and then they're like, no, we might actually move on from you. But that's the nice thing about having Trey Young and AD. And again, I think people have talked about like Trey Young will probably get like a 3-year deal, and I'm sure it'll probably be in the line of like, I don't know, 30 million or something like that. Nothing crazy. So you're not tied down financially to him for long term. Same with Anthony Davis, right? So we already talked about like it's a no brainer for the team, and it'll be cool to see out where it goes. We probably won't see it much this year,
Mm-mm.
but especially because they're in tank mode. But next season is, I think, where you'll actually start to see the fruits, start bearing, because I think that's when you're going to see like Trey Young plus AD, plus all these lottery picks, plus the improvements that you would hope to see from guys like a Trey Johnson, or an Alex Sarr, or even like a Will Riley, right? That's a guy, right, where all of a sudden, in this tankathon, he's kind of been a guy that's been playing great
Yeah,
basketball.
he's
So
been great.
pretty cool to see. So we'll see where it goes. So now I guess we'll kind of move on to kind of a fun race in the lower half of the Eastern Conference bracket. So we had a few things that happened. So America's team, the Charlotte Hornets, unfortunately, it was a big game. It was like a playoff game, honestly, between the Miami Heat and the Charlotte Hornets, and the Heat came out on top. The Hornets ended up losing the game, and I think this one's a big deal because this was a scenario where going into that game, Charlotte's what 32-31, so they're above 500. The Heat are 34-29, and had the Hornets won that game, they play them again, so they'd have an opportunity, I think, maybe to get the tiebreaker and potentially pass them. But now with that loss, right, I think it may be a lot more likely that the Hornets are probably capped in the 9-10 spot. And I think that makes their probability of making the playoffs a lot lower. Now, I'm not saying that they can't make the playoffs, that they have no shot. It's just now, the Heat, they are 3 games ahead of the Hornets. The Sixers, I believe, they just lost to the Atlanta Hawks. So the Sixers now, with the injuries they've had, right? Because Paul George has been out due to suspension, and Embiid's been out, I think, longer than people thought, right? Because he was initially kind of expected to not be out that long. They've dropped to the 8th seed, so that's bad for them, right? But then, obviously, like I said, for the Hornets, that could maybe make your path to the playoffs even tougher because we don't know how it's going to shake up. But I feel like right now we know the top 5 in the East. Although, to be fair, Toronto has been trending downwards. So there's a chance that they may drop below 5 because the Magic are starting to show signs of life. They were this close to blowing it against Dallas. It was bad. Thank you, Wendell Carter Jr. But
Yeah.
just in general, um, they're 6-4 in their last 10. They just lost Anthony Black in this last. They beat Minnesota, which is just weird.
Yeah, it was
But
random.
just in,
One
yeah,
of
but
those
like they've had
nights.
injuries. Huh?
I said one of those nights.
Yeah, exactly. But they've had injuries all year, but they are 6-4 in their last 10. So that's where, like I said, this bottom half of the East gets a little bit crazy. Because like I said, the Raptors now have been losing. So they're trending downwards. Then you have the Magic at 6. You have Miami at 7. Philly at 8 now. They were 6 initially. Now the Hawks, who have won 6 in a row, and they're 7-3 in their last 10 with, rising star Kaminga, although he's been out the last couple of games with a knee injury, but still, he helped them win some games. And then there's the Hornets, right, who are also 7-3 in the last time. Like I said, that loss, it was a great game. Tyler Hero was amazing. Bam was really good. Drew Smith was a savior in the game. His only points that he scored was like a left-hand tip in. So that was, if you watch the Hornets broadcast, they were devastated.
Yeah.
But it's tough because, like I said, that probably caps them in the 9-10 spot, which, like I said, makes their chances of making the playoffs a lot smaller now. Like I said, I'm not saying it's 0%, but it makes it really tough because if they're in the 9-10 spot, say they stay at 10, I don't know if they will, but if they stay at 10, regardless if they're in the 9-10, they're probably playing Atlanta, unless Atlanta moves up because they keep winning. And then even if you get out of there, then you got to play one of Orlando, Miami, Philly, maybe Toronto. And, Charlotte's been great this latter part, but that's a tough roadmap, potentially. And I'm not saying they can't beat these teams. It's just as a 10 seed, it's so hard to do. I know the Heat just did it last year, and it is the Eastern Conference. But like if I like right now, if you ask me, do I think the Hornets make the playoffs? Like now I would probably lean more towards no, just because I think statistically it's a lot tougher to do it now. I'm not saying it's impossible, but like I said, if you ask me right now, I would say no, because I just think it's very difficult to come out of the play-in as the 10 spot and win 2 games on the road, to get in as the 8th seed. I think I know the Heat did it last year. So it's not that it can't be done, but it's very difficult, right? Because everything has to go right. Even for the Heat, right? They were in overtime against the Atlanta Hawks, right? So that was basically a coin flip
Yeah.
of a game, right? So it's tough because, like I said, I know a lot of people are in love with the Hornets, and want to see them make the playoffs, but it might be a wrap.
Yeah.
Might be a wrap.
It would be nice to see them there. Right there, we already know they're a fun team to watch. You obviously have Con Knipple, right, just tearing it up. But I honestly think Miami probably gets out. Like I think they probably jump to like maybe 6 or even 5, and I think probably
Okay.
Orlando drops. Honestly, I've been not too pleased with what I've seen from them this season. If you want me to be honest,
It's
and
sad.
you already know where it starts. I'm not going to dog the guy because I genuinely do like
He's
him.
been playing better though. To be fair, he's been
Yes,
playing better.
he has, but I think there's still a genuine problem with that roster and the way that they operate with him
Yeah.
at the helm. So I think that they drop to 7, and I think they would probably handle Charlotte. Like if I'm picking between Orlando, Miami, Philly, Atlanta, and Charlotte, I think Charlotte beats Atlanta. I'll give them that.
Mhm.
But I don't think they get much farther than that. You know what I mean? Like, and
And that's the tricky part
yeah,
of mapping out this bottom half of the Eastern Conference. Yeah, because
it's too
I don't.
volatile.
Yeah, it is, and because again, like I said, a week ago, Philly was 6, and now they're 8, and that doesn't mean they'll stay at 8. But if Embiid's still going to be out for a while, and Paul George still isn't going to be back for a while, and then Maxey has to play a lot, and Edgecombe has now been out for like
Yeah.
a few games. He had the back issue.
Mm-hmm.
So now you're down 3 starters, all who are pretty important to the team, including, like some of your best
Yep.
players. So, yeah, so that's not great, right? Like this is one of those where it's like those injuries, 4 and 6 in the last 10, those are pretty devastating.
Yeah.
Like that could be a team that might drop, especially if like Embiid just doesn't come back for another week because we don't know. We don't know how long he'll be out.
Yeah.
I mean, he hasn't played since I think he played what, maybe 1 or 2 games after the All-Star break because he came back, but now he's out again.
Yep.
So I don't even know when his last game was.
Yeah.
Let me see.
It was before they played Boston, right?
Yeah, his last game that he played was against Indiana.
Oh boy, that's
So
a
that was
while ago.
February 20. So that was February 24th. He hasn't played. Wait, no. His last game was against Miami, February 26th.
Okay.
So he hasn't played since February 26th.
Oof, that's
We
rough.
still don't know when he'll be out. Yeah. And they already said he'll be out for at least one more week. And they said that like a day or so ago. So,
So I guess in
so
theory,
he's not.
Philly probably drops to 9, maybe, and Atlanta catapults, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. And like that's kind of funny because, we've talked a ton about Charlotte. We haven't really talked about the Hawks like into much of a degree just because like I think we had kind of just written them off and kind of just forgot about them, after the Trae Young deal, and it seemed like they were just kind of like just trending towards like okay, they're just probably just mediocre.
Sure.
But I mean, to be fair, like they have been winning a lot as of late. I mean, they haven't necessarily played amazing competition, but like just in general, like it's been pretty cool to see Kuminga come back and play well for a few games before he went out. Like Jalen Johnson's still been very good. Risa Shea now has been moved to the bench, so now they have like a little bit of a different look in that starting group. I think it's just because like I don't know, I like they put McCollum in the starting 5, so maybe they just wanted a little bit more. I don't know, shot creation
Mm-hmm.
in the starting 5.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I still don't think it's great that the number 1 pick is coming off the bench. Like, I don't
Yeah,
really.
I agree.
I mean, that's great for the team, if they're winning games. But I mean, that's still not great. That you're in year 2 and your number 1 pick is a 6th man. Like, and you can see the value of him. Spacing the floor, being a finisher, not really being a creator. But then it's also like, well, why couldn't that just work in the starting lineup? But I just think if McCollum's not out there, I guess they're just thinking like you don't have enough ball handling scorers or shot creators, right? Because then it's like Dyson Daniels who can't shoot,
Yeah. Oh my
Jalen
gosh.
Johnson who can shoot, but he's more comfortable being a downhill guy.
Yes.
And then after that, it's kind of limited. So in terms of creation, but they are 7-3 in their last 10. They've won 6 in a row. I don't know if it actually means anything, but good to see, I guess. Like, is it more so a byproduct of who they're playing, potentially?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, when you play
Yeah,
the Wizards, what, back-to-back games, and then you have the Bucks and injury-riddled Sixers. I mean, come on.
yeah. So yeah, and that's why it's like they are winning games, so it's good to see. But like you said, it's probably more so a byproduct of who they're playing. But the thing with the Hawks is they don't have a reason to tank, right? They don't have their pick. So there's no real incentive to just throw everything away, right? And Jalen Johnson had a couple of games where he got hurt. Like he got hurt, I think, in one of those Wizards games. So he played like 5-6 minutes.
Yep.
That was one of the big Kuminga games. Portland was another one where that was a big Kuminga game, and I don't think he's played since. So hopefully his knee's doing okay because that's a guy where he took a lot of flack. The last few years, and we get it, and I'm not, and again, we were not huge fans of his,
No.
but you do have to give him props because he's played very well for the Hawks.
Stellar.
Yeah, exactly, right? I mean, since he's joined them, 21 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. Dominique Wilkins is like, thank you, Warriors.
Yeah.
And the thing is, like, we never thought he was a bum or a scrub,
No.
right? Like, even if you're not like a huge fan of a player, like you can still acknowledge like that they're good or their skill sets. It just sucks that it couldn't work out with the Warriors because like you watch him play and it's like he was never like a DNP level. This guy can't be,
No.
can't play on a team at all. And it's not, and up until you know right before Jimmy got hurt, like that team wasn't playing very well, right?
Mm-mm.
Like, I mean, so that's kind of the other thing. But for Kaminga at the very least, if he can stay healthy, which is honestly a question mark for him, which nobody really talks about. He's actually missed a lot of games in his career, in the last couple of years as his role has increased. He's missed a decent
Mm-hmm.
amount of time, but if he can stay healthy, is he a Hawk next year?
I think so. Yeah, like you said, if he can stay healthy, because I think he brings a crap ton to the table, right? He's
Hmm.
versatile offensively. He has a bag. I think it would be great if we could see him develop an outside shot. But I just think the Warriors and him was just a bad fit from the start. It never really came to fruition, and I get it. You kind of wanted him to be that Andrew Wiggins type of player, but in the same breath, was he ever really going to be able to do that? I don't know.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
but we'll see what happens. But I think
yeah,
he's
he
a
was
Hawk.
probably saying, yeah, I mean, he was probably saying like they're trying to get me to be like Andrew Wiggins, so.
Wow, yeah, that reference is crazy. That
Yeah.
the dude who said that is an absolute bum, by the way. But yeah,
Yeah, but it's not here nor the point. Um, but yeah,
wow,
but yeah, but the Kaminga thing is wild because again, like it's just he should have never been a DMP. But I get, and he also probably was like, I don't really want to play here. Like
yeah,
I think that's kind of the other factor as well. And they're like, well, we don't want you here either.
exactly.
So like, yeah, so everybody has some level of blame to share. So we'll see, how the Porzingis stuff works out because he's played in I think one game. Is he playing tonight against the Thunder?
I'm not sure, but I know it's only
Yeah,
been one
like
game, like you
yeah,
said.
like yeah, like the last time that I checked, he was supposed to be playing against OKC. Yeah, and he's played 10 minutes.
Well,
So
there you go.
he's coming off the bench. He played 10 and a half minutes, 7 points, 2 rebounds, stealing a block. That's box score watching, so that's not an efficient way to really discuss him. But we've talked about it before. Like if he plays, he can be a helpful player, but that's the question. Can he play? Can play consistently? Because
Yeah,
we already said, like, do we think he plays like 10 straight games for the Warriors? And like as of right now, he's not passing the check mark because
he,
he's only played in 2 games
yeah. What did I
since.
say? I think I said he doesn't play 10 games at all.
Yeah, I think that's what you said.
Wow. Okay.
So there's 62 games in. After this game, it'll be 63. So there'll be 19 games left. So
That's
he would have
50-50.
to play, 8 more games out of the next 19 in order to get to that mark.
He's not
So
playing, especially if
yeah.
he continues to have this mysterious illness.
Yeah, so but yeah, Eastern Conference, it feels like the Heat might actually be able to jump out of the top. Do you think Toronto falls? Because like I said, they're 5-5 in their last 10, and they've had a problem against, like a lot of good, they're a team where they've had trouble against a lot of teams with good records, right? Where they just have had a lot of struggles with them. And it just kind of feels like, okay, are they running out of juice? Like, are there guys who are not playing as well as they did early in the season? Like, I think some of it is like Grady Dick, Shed, and some of these other guys. Maybe they're running out of steam where they're just not hitting shots at all. I'm not sure, but Pirtle, right? His back has been an issue like all year, and if when he plays and he's healthy, he helps him out a lot. But that just hasn't been the case for most of this year. Do you think they fall out of the top five? Because I mean, they're only a game ahead of Orlando.
Mm, honestly, I think they stay. I think they plateau.
Okay.
Like I said, there could be a case where Miami jumps Orlando, right, and
Mhm.
maybe even jumps Toronto as well, and Toronto maybe falls to 6. I don't think Toronto goes to the play-in though. I don't foresee that happening. I think they'll figure it out. Like
Yeah.
you said, weird stretch for them, but I think the overall cumulative talent on that team is probably a little bit better throughout the season than a couple of the other teams that could jump them. But
Yeah. Their next stretch of games, they play Dallas, they play Houston, they play New Orleans, they play Phoenix, they play Detroit, they play the Bulls, they play the Nuggets, and then they play the Suns. So that's what like their next uh 9 games, and then they play Utah. So it's
Okay.
like
There's some
there's some
winnables in
winnable
there. Yeah.
there's some winnable games in there, but not a lot of time left. So if they're gonna stay in that top 5, they're gonna need to outpace some of these other teams. And like I said, that's where I'm excited to see this. But a team that I think might as well stick a fork in them in the Eastern Conference is the Milwaukee Bucks. They're the 11th seed. They've lost 4 in a row. They're 5-5 in their last 10. Giannis has come back, and they've still lost. It's not really his fault. Just I don't think the team is that great. But they lost a game. Their last game, I believe, was against Atlanta. They're playing Utah right now. I'm gonna assume that they're gonna win that game. Because it's not like Utah has a whole lot to play for. But like the loss to Atlanta, it's like what I said about the Heat and the Hornets, where that's a team that you have to pass if you're gonna get out of that 11 spot. And they didn't just lose; they got blown out. Like they were up by double digits initially. Then in the second half, like they just get crushed. And now they're 3.5 games no, 4.5 games, excuse me, behind Charlotte, and then 5.5 games behind Atlanta. That's a lot of games to catch up, with basically like less than 20 games to go. Those teams would have to completely fall off a cliff, I think, in order for Milwaukee to catch up. And they play some of those teams, like they'll play Orlando, they'll play Miami, they'll play Atlanta again. So there'll be an opportunity potentially to beat those teams and catch up. So they don't have like a crazy difficult schedule. Like they play the Clippers a couple times, they play Portland, they play Phoenix, they play Utah, they play Indiana. So there's a chance, but it's starting to run out of time because like now they don't control their destiny. Like I said, they do play some of these teams, but if those other teams still win out most of their games, it doesn't really matter. So it feels like it might be time to cross the Bucks out, cross the Bucks off the list of like, play-in teams. Like they might just be done at this point because math-wise, I think it would be not impossible, but very difficult. Like they're not statistically eliminated, but at this point, they might as well be just because I mean that's a lot of games to catch up.
Yeah. Can we take our victory lap on this one? I think we
Go
called
ahead.
we called that this team was not going to be it at all this season. I don't think
Yeah, we
we
did.
expected it to be this
Took
bad.
the under.
Yeah. We did take the under, but I don't think we expected it to be this bad. Honestly, I think we factored in a little bit of Giannis injury. I don't think we factored in the
Yeah,
drama.
not this.
Yeah, exactly. But we definitely called that this roster was not a contending team at all. But
Right.
for them to be, in the 11th spot in the Eastern Conference is freaking hilarious, right? And it's funny because Bucks fans continuously called us out. They were like, "You don't know anything," all this crazy stuff, and it's like, bro, all you had to do was take a look at that roster, cover up Giannis, and just laugh. That's all you had to do. Shout out to Ryan Rollins, one of the best stories of the season this year. He's, earned all the praise, right?
Mhm.
Shout out to the other guys who were hidden gems, like even AJ Green, like pretty big fan. But,
Mhm.
when your highlight of the offseason is, acquiring Miles Turner, but waiving and stretching Dame's contract to do so, it's giving me Luol Deng vibes, man. So, like
Oh
I
God.
said, L Bucks, and yeah, this it actually does put a smile on my face.
Yeah, and but the thing with him is like I don't think he's even really been that great this year. Like that's kind of the other issue
My
with
point.
Turner.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like
It's terrible.
yeah, like he's having basically one of his worst years as a pro. I mean, he's shooting 38.5% from 3, but he's like 44 from the field. Is He's down to like 12 points a game, only 5.5 rebounds, which I think is pretty bad when you also consider that Giannis has missed so much time, right? Because like, okay, I could understand if you and Giannis are playing together, there's only a certain amount of rebounds that you're probably going to get, like Brook Lopez kind of. But with Giannis missing like 30 games, how are you only getting like 5 rebounds a game? Who are these other guys on the team that are like just grabbing all these rebounds? I mean, I guess, the leading rebounder on the team is Giannis, and then it's Portis at 6 a game. I guess it's kind of a collective effort, right? Like Kevin Porter Jr. is averaging 5, which it's actually pretty good for a guard, right? Jericho Sims, Kuzma, Ryan Rollins, they're all at like 4 or 5 boards a game. But like, and it's not just the rebounding, just in general, like it's kind of letting us know why Indiana opted to not re-sign him, right? Because like we knew it was a big loss and that they were gonna have to find a way to replace him. And we'll see what happens with Zubac. But like the one thing that you can say about, regardless of how you feel about the Zubac trade, um, one thing you can say is his contract is pretty good. I mean, his contract, he's like 18 million, 20 million, 21 million. That's less than what Miles Turner is making. Miles Turner is making like close to 30 million a year at this point, right? So, that's kind of the tough part that Milwaukee's going to have to swallow. And the nice thing for them, I guess, is like, say they miss the playoffs, they'll have a chance to get a lottery pick. So that'll be nice. I mean, they get the worst between them and the Pelicans, right? And I guess the Pelicans, they've kind of played their way semi out of the bottom pit, right? Like now they're no longer like a bottom 5 team. So that's kind of the other thing about the Hawks where it's like, now your pick may not be as good. Maybe you'll get some lottery luck. But, just as a whole, the Bucks one, I think that's probably a wrap. Just because because like I said, math wise, not impossible, but very difficult. Like I said, they will play these teams. So if they beat them, they'll have a shot.
Yeah.
But that's a lot to ask. I mean, you're still 4.5 games back of the 10 spot. That's very difficult at this point in the season.
Cooked.
Yeah. So now that we got that out of the way, now we can look at the lower part of the bracket in the Western Conference, right? Because this is where this also gets kind of funky, kind of crazy. So none of the teams after the top 10, this is the easy part about them. No one after 10 you have to worry about because they're all trying to tank, right? Like Memphis is tanking, the Mavs are tanking. New Orleans actually is trying to win, but they were so bad for most of the season that it really doesn't matter. Like they're going to try to win games. So that's the funny thing about them is like they're one of the only bottom 10 teams that's actually trying to win, right? Like I guess the Bucks are trying to win. But other than that, everyone else is tanking. So they're a team that maybe they could trend up. It's just you're still 2 games behind the Dallas, 4.5 games or whatever, 5 games behind Memphis. So that's going to be difficult because they don't want to finish low. They actually want to be better, right? Maybe screw over Atlanta and be like, yeah, you're not going to get a top 5 pick now, or you're going to have to get some luck. The ping pong balls are going to have to go your way. But other than that, like I said, that's the nice part is you really only have to focus on a handful of teams, right? You got Phoenix, Golden State, Clippers, Blazers, right? So those are right now the 7 to 10. And then after that, right, you go up. And then you have the Lakers and the Nuggets that are somewhat dangerously close, to Phoenix. Right now, Brooks is out for a while. He broke his hand. So that's not great. And now Mark Williams apparently has a foot issue. So now he's going to be out for at least a few weeks. So he probably doesn't come back the rest of the regular season. They do have some other bigs on the roster. Like I believe they started Iguodala at center. So he's probably going to start it. And then we'll probably see Malawach, honestly, like because he played in the other game against the Pelicans. And he had 5 blocks. So, shout out to him. So we'll actually get to see minutes from him. But what do you think of that 7 to 10 in the West? Because like I said, you have Phoenix, who's 5-5 in the last 10. Booker missed time. Now he's back. Jalen Green is now back. So, he's playing better, I would say. He's had some rough games, but, he's missed so much time that you at least have to give him some level of grace. And that could be helpful at least while Brooks is out because they're going to need some additional perimeter scoring outside of, just Booker. Because even in the Pelicans game, right? Like Booker, I mean, he had 32 and shot 10 for 21. So he had a solid game, but he needs help, right? And Jalen Green had 25. So couldn't come at a much better time.
Yeah.
So, and like I said, I don't think Brooks comes back for a while, right? He may not be back until the end of the regular season. So, we'll see about that one. Not going to touch that one. But, he broke his hand, had some other stuff, but the main thing is the broken hand. Can't come back until that's fixed. So, either way, then you have the Warriors, who some people can't figure out whether or not they're tanking. When you watch them play, it doesn't look like they're tanking, honestly, because they're actually playing hard. Every once in a while, you catch them on the right night, and they actually beat, like, decent teams. Like, they beat Houston in overtime. I don't really know how they did it, but somehow they did it. They beat Denver, right, with that crazy fourth quarter where they were down like double digits, and then all of a sudden they just went on a hot streak. Like, it's funny, while Steph has been out, they've actually shot more threes because now they don't really have anybody who can just go in and attack the paint. So that means there could be nights where they just get hot and do not miss. And we don't know when Steph's coming back because he initially got hurt, I think right at the end of January, hasn't played since. And then he's just had, you know, reevaluation date after reevaluation date, and we still don't really know when he's coming back. He had runner's knee, he's had swelling in his knee, which is, I guess no structural damage, so that's nice. But swelling is bad because that means he's not coming back until that swelling is, healed up. We don't know when that's going to be. And, honestly, if you're the Warriors, is it worth it at this point? Is it better to maybe just fall out a little bit and maybe get a little bit of Dallas magic to go your way? Maybe you can get the number one pick. Maybe that could happen. Like it's you never know. But then the problem is below them, like the Clippers and the Blazers haven't necessarily played great in the last 10 games either, right? The Clippers are 5-5 in their last 10, had a disgusting loss to the Spurs where they were up 20 at halftime, up 25 in the third quarter. And then you cut on the game late in the fourth, and it looks like neither team wants to win, right? Where Batum inbounds the ball to Lopez, but he doesn't step inside and he just stays out of bounds. And then Lopez throws the ball back to him, and it's a turnover. But then the Spurs say, you know what? We don't want to win this game. Here you go, Julian Champagnie. Go dunk the ball instead of dribbling the ball out. And then he misses both free throws. Then Wemby tips it back out, right? Then Castle gets fouled and it's like, you know what? I still don't want to win this game. I'm not going to make 2 free throws. Splits the pair. Then he gets his own offensive rebound. It bounces right towards him and he puts it up, and that's the game, right? Just like there was another possession mixed in there where like Wemby was switched on to him, and then Kawhi forced the shot over Wemby that didn't go in.
Yeah.
And then Wemby just ran down and got a dunk. So, like, it was a drunk game. It was one of those games. But, like, that's a type of game that's tough to lose because we know the Clippers are a team that doesn't want to lose. Like, they don't have their pick.
Yeah.
They have no incentive to lose games. So that's the thing where it's like, if you're the Warriors, where it's like, we can't even try to tank because these teams below us aren't even winning games. Like, look at Portland. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They had like a double-digit lead against Houston and then just forgot how to play basketball.
Yeah,
like
bro,
10
it's bad.
Yeah, like who forgot how to play basketball, which is kind of funny. And then Avdija, what's going on with his back? I mean, at this point, he's missed so many games. I don't even think he's eligible for anything anymore.
Nope.
So, and then Shaedon Sharpe, obviously he's out. Scoot's come back, but Brandon Miller stands, you win, it's over, right? Like, Brandon Miller, you win. So, whoop-de-doo. Great job. But like, to be fair, like I never thought there were people who thought Brandon Miller was going to be a bust. I never thought he was going to be a bust.
Yeah, I never understood that logic.
I never understood that either. I never understood it because like I know sometimes there are guys like that give the profile of like, okay, you're a 6'8" wing. I'm not going to say who, but just like, you give off the profile of like you're a tall wing, you got some athleticism, you can knock down shots. So like you're automatically going to be great.
Yeah.
Right. But like, and then maybe, and I think there's probably there's some personal stuff. I don't know. Maybe that's what some people factored in with Miller, where like maybe they just felt like he seemed aloof or whatever. I'm not sure. But just in general, like I never understood that.
Yeah.
I always thought both of them were going to be good, but I thought Scoot would be better in that. Yeah, that didn't pan out.
Yeah.
It's not working.
That was a time. A time was had with that
one.
And
and like it's completely changed now how I like look at evaluating guys.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to pretend like I'm a scout. I'm just saying like it's gotten so bad to the point where like since that point, I'm like, do I even believe what I used to believe anymore?
Yeah.
Like that's how bad it got.
I mean,
like,
to be fair though, we are talking about the G League Ignite, right? And the comparisons. Right. I mean, and granted, like, if you watch the highlights and watch the guy play, you think he was the next coming of, I don't know, Russ or freaking D Rose.
Yeah.
You really would.
And he's just not as athletic as those guys. Like when you watch him play. Like he looked like that kind of in the summer league for the one game I think he played. Whatever. But like just in general, like that's kind of I think what everybody thought, where it's like, all right, this guy is like a generational athlete. Right. So when you combine that with his mindset, how could this possibly fail? Right. And then it's like, well, what if he's not as athletic as we think? And now he's had a bunch of injuries too, so that's probably set him back as well. And I guess like, now he's hitting some jump shots, I think, but it's still, and Portland's like kind of a work in progress, right? Like they've been a very weird team all year. I mean, I think people have also forgotten like the guy who was supposed to coach the team isn't coaching the team right
Yeah,
now
you're
for
right.
reasons. But either way, like just in general, it's rough. So like that's the part that kind of stinks because I thought he would pan out, and like I don't want to turn this into like a Scoot Henderson soapbox, but it's just like since we're talking about the 7 through 10 in the Western Conference, it might as well be addressed.
Yeah, he's a part of the
Just
story.
yeah, because they were looked at as a team where like if everybody's healthy, they could potentially put it together. That hasn't happened at all. Because, like I said, Abdia just, I don't know what happened with his back, but he's just like in and out every game.
Yeah,
And like I said, Shaden Sharp has been out. Scoot's come back, and it's been a transition because he hadn't played all year, right? Like I mean, so that's the tricky part. So they're kind of tough. So that's the part where like I don't know what to make of the 7 to 10. Like I guess if Phoenix is healthy, they're I guess probably the best of the four because like Butler's not coming back
nope.
at all. Like and I have no idea what's going on with Steph or Porzingis. Like I can't bank on anything because I don't know when Steph will be back and I don't know how many games Porzingis will play. And then the Clippers, like, could you win a handful of games? Like, I mean, because that's the team I feel like that people are would like on paper are probably the highest on,
Absolutely.
but like they haven't been like amazing as of
No.
late. Like yeah, like they've been playing 500 basketball, and like that's with Kawhi like coming back. So I know they've had guys in and out. Like they also lost Yannick Conan Niederhauser, right? Like he had the injury I think that Chet had when he was in that pro am game,
Yeah,
years ago. So that means he'll probably be out
he's done.
for for most of next season too.
Yep,
Like not even just this year, but like most of next season.
quite
So
literally.
which is wild because initially they were like he's out for at least 2 more games, and then it's like, well, that's more than 2 games, but okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. This
Yeah. So what do
sucks.
you think of the 7 to 10? I feel like I'm kind of rambling here.
No, it's fine. It because there's a lot to talk about. I feel like, Phoenix is the one that kind of has piqued my interest, but like you said,
Mhm.
no Dylan Brooks, and that's kind of unfortunate for that team because he's really been, the life raft keeping them afloat,
Yeah.
at times.
And they're rock.
Quite literally, like seriously, and people are, memeing and joking about it, but no, he's seriously been a positive contributor on both ends of the floor. So without him, I don't know what they look like. Golden State, I think, is cooked regardless. I think, yeah, having Steph back would be great. We don't know the ETA or timeline, but, I don't,
Don't know.
like I said, I don't think Porzingis plays 10 games, and that team is just god awful, in my opinion. I'm just not.
I don't know how they win some of these games.
That's
It's
my point.
crazy. Like
Yeah.
I know they play hard and with effort and they got the system, but like just they've stolen enough games to kind of still stay alive.
Yeah, and they'll have all these random like performances. It's really like a team effort, honestly. But even then, I that doesn't really instill a whole lot of confidence. Like what they're gonna get out of the play in with friendship? No.
Yeah. I mean D'Anthony Melton, Guy Santos, I mean like you gotta look
I
out
mean,
like
like
I
shout out
mean
to Guy Santos because he's been pretty good. But at the same time, like the power of friendship is not going to get you out of the play in.
Horford Renaissance.
I mean, I like the pairing and reuniting, Horford and Porzingis, but we just haven't really seen a whole lot of it. I'm most intrigued by the Clippers because I feel like if we can just get this pickup truck to start, right,
Yeah.
then they might, they might make it all the way. You know what I'm saying? They might get out of the play-in, and that would be beautiful because I think, like you said, on paper, that team is the one that probably has, the most
Yeah.
potential to do a little bit of damage, right? Because a healthy Darius Garland, Benedict Mathurin, you got Kawhi as well, so.
They have guys that could come back.
Exactly, and I think there's a lot of impactful playoff guys, on that team. Same thing with Phoenix as well. That's why I kind of have them in the same tier. Portland, I'm kind of just discarding at this point. I think they were a fun story, earlier in the season, especially up until the All-Star break. But they're clearly, like you said, still a very, very raw team, and they have a lot of work to do. And there's definitely some pieces that need to develop for sure. And I think we've seen flashes at times, but definitely not a cohesive, like, yes, this team is going to be great. So next year is probably going to be the year for them to do something. But, and like you said, outside of that, everybody else is tanking. It would be interesting to see, if Phoenix can potentially get out of the play-in before the play-in
Yeah.
starts, like if they
That-
can,
that-
if they can jump, maybe LA. I don't know.
yeah, that's the last question I was asking, just because like Denver and LA, they're like half a game apart from one another. both of those teams haven't played well in a while. Because I know, obviously, we've talked about the Lakers, but like even the Nuggets have been kind of shaky,
Yeah, they're
like for a
scaring me.
while. It's been like an extended stretch of 500 basketball. Murray got hurt the
Mm.
other night against the Knicks. They lost by like 40 points. Just and I mean, like they can at least hang on to like, well, we haven't had our full group of guys for an extended stretch. But like everybody can say that. Like all of these teams can say that. Like OKC, who's sitting up in the one spot, can say like we haven't had our full crop of guys for like 3 straight weeks, and we're all year, and we're
Yeah.
like the one seed, right? Um, Houston has guys that won't come back at all, right? Like the Spurs, I mean, I guess they haven't had like a crazy amount of injuries since Wemby, came back, but like still, they had an extended stretch. The Wolves have kind of been the only team that hasn't really had a long stretch where guys have been out, which is kind of disappointing because it's like, well, if that's the case, why are you 4? Like you should probably be, in my opinion, be higher.
Yeah.
But it's really close. It's not like they can't get there. Like they're right there with Houston. And then after that, like I said, Denver like has kind of sneakily been kind of rough, like the Lakers. But like I said, we've already talked about it. But that's my other question: is like, could those two teams fall? Because I mean, they have pretty difficult schedules. I think the Nuggets have the toughest remaining schedule left in the season, and I don't think the Lakers are necessarily far behind. Right, like both of those teams have pretty rough schedules where they're going to be playing a lot of good teams
Yeah.
the rest of the way. So there's a chance that one of those teams. Yeah, Denver has the hardest remaining schedule. They play OKC 2 more times. They play and they haven't beaten them. The Spurs they play 3 more times, which I thought they already played, but I think one of those was a cup game, so that's why they play the Rockets, they play the Lakers, they play the Suns, they play the Raptors, and then they have a couple games left against Utah, Portland, Memphis, Dallas. And
Yeah.
then there's the Lakers, right, who play OKC twice. They play Detroit. They play the Knicks. They play the Rockets twice. They play Minnesota. They play Cleveland. And then they play Indiana. Then they play Brooklyn, Washington, Utah, Dallas, Chicago. But that's like later. They have like a stretch coming up like right now that's pretty difficult. And, it's kind of rough because like there are a couple of guys on those teams where it's like Cam Johnson for Denver. He's been he's sneakily been pretty disgusting,
He's been
honestly.
horrible, bro.
Yeah, like
Horrible.
yeah, like I know you thought I was gonna say somebody else.
Oh, we
Eh,
could we
you
could
know,
talk about we could
yeah,
talk about that guy in a second.
yeah, but just in general, like for Caleb Johnson, he had a game. What was it? It was It was OKC and Minnesota, but the OKC game was the one in particular because he had a couple of shots where it was like late in the fourth quarter. If he makes the shot, he's like wide open in the corner. If he makes it, they go up 3 and they probably win the game. And then he misses, of course, wide open, and they go into overtime. Then he has another shot in overtime where I think it was to tie the game. And what does he do? Wide open. He misses it.
Yeah.
And it's like he's shooting 40% from 3, which is nice. But like I feel like when you watch him play, anytime there's a big shot, I like automatically just expect him to miss it. Like and it feels like that. And like it's weird because for Denver this season, like when you watch them play, they haven't been good at home. They're what, like 17 and 13 at home, which on paper doesn't sound bad, but like they've been one of the best home teams in the league every year for the last few years. They're pretty good on the road, so that's nice, but like at home, they don't have an advantage seemingly at all. They are basically 500 in clutch games, which is the crazy part because that's their superpower, right? Like we talk about all these teams where when we look at contenders, we're like, what's your superpower? What's the thing that you do better than anybody else, right? And like, yeah, having your superstar is nice, but like, as we've seen with the Bucks and Giannis, like, so what? You can have the superstar if the rest of the team doesn't have a superpower, it doesn't matter, right? But then when you look at the Nuggets in clutch games, yeah, it's not been great. I mean, where are they even at? Like, let me see. Like in terms, yeah, they're 16 and 16, and that's not the Nuggets that we know of. That in terms of clutch games, right? Like last season, I believe they were much better in terms of clutch games, and I think they were like second or third in clutch games. They were eighth last year, and then back in 2024 they were number 2, and then 2023, which was the year that they won the title, right? It looks like they were It looks like they were a little bit lower. Okay, so they were 14, but like all these clutch games were kind of mixed together, right? The Heat actually had the best clutch record, funny enough, but that was like almost 54 games, right? That was a weird season. But just in general, they don't feel like the team that we've seen them. And then I guess, do we want to talk about them before we, dive, take a quick dive into LA? I know we've talked about them a bunch. Might as well address them too, because they're in the 6th spot. So
Yeah,
they're not safe either.
why
What
not?
do you think?
I mean, yeah, with Denver, and it's funny because right before we started recording, I actually
Yep.
watched Kenny's video on Denver. I'm sure everybody was
Yeah.
talking about that. And he was like, this team is not a contending team, and I'm like, huh, that's kind of a interesting take, compared to ones that we've heard on our own show, from you, me, even
Yeah.
Top Notch,
Who am
right?
I picked to win the title?
Exactly. You picked them to win the title. So I'm like, you know what? Let me hear him out. And I'm like, dang, he's kind of making some valid points, right? Like, and it starts with, moments where, yeah, this team just doesn't have that magic, that they've had from previous
No.
seasons, right? Like, and you always are going to put them in title contention when Nikola Jokic is healthy and doing his thing, right? He's one of the best players, in the league. And you pair
Right.
that with Jamal Murray, who's having a career season.
Yeah.
You would
Yes.
think this is a recipe for them to be, potential pathway to title number 2. But absolutely
Right.
not. The role players I don't think have been too spectacular. I think, Peyton Watson, great, but the
It's
health
hurt.
has been terrible for this team.
Yeah.
That's been a big contributing factor to the 500 basketball. But like you said, they just don't have they have impact players, but I don't think the impact is big enough. That's the best way that I could really put it.
No.
Yeah, you love Cam Johnson because he's such a great system player. He can spot up, he can do everything that you would want. But in big moments, and like you said, you just don't really feel too confident. Versus a guy
No.
like Michael Porter Jr., I want him
Yeah.
taking the shot. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I would like
Yeah.
that.
He crushed my team in the past in the playoffs.
Exactly. Like, you want guys that aren't, I don't want to say, because I don't think he's afraid of the moment, right? It's just, it doesn't go his way a lot.
Right.
You have spark plugs like Tim Hardaway Jr., been okay, but it's just not enough in a Western
Yeah.
Conference like this where you kind of have to be on point night in, night out if you really want a chance at the title. And
Yeah.
and that goes for even the teams above Denver, right? Like, Minnesota has had severe brain lapses. Houston, don't even get me started on that. I think what was the burner's name? Kevin Durant. Get off get off my, you know what? Bro, I think he's made some valid points. Jabari Smith Jr., wow. San Antonio, I feel like you already talked about, their moments, obviously translating to wins. OKC,
Yeah, it is.
same story as Denver, right? Just haven't really been, healthy
Yeah.
and dominant. So there's a funk going on in the Western Conference, but I think Denver is really kind of in the middle of it. Like, other
Right.
teams are
Yeah.
kind of getting past it, but
Mur-
there's nothing going on in
Murray,
Denver.
Murray, Jokic, and Gordon, before they got hurt, were playing the best basketball of their careers. And they were right there record wise with Oklahoma City and
Yes.
San Antonio. And then they just nosedived
Yeah.
and they have not recovered. Like, even with Jokic back, they haven't even been good since Jokic came back. Like, how many times do you see a Jokic team where he's playing and they don't win that much? Like, even in years where their teams weren't that good, they were still winning more
Yes.
often than not. And I know he's come back from injury, so maybe he individually hasn't played as well. Even in games where you look at his stat line and it looks good. If you watch the game, he didn't have say in their last game against LA, right, where you look at his stat line and he hit some big shots, but he also had 9 turnovers, right? He had some rough stretches on defense. So I don't know what to make of them. If they're fully healthy for the last few weeks of the regular season, which I can't even count on because I don't know if Murray's going to be out, then they have a shot, but they're gonna have to win. They're gonna have to, because if they don't and they're gonna be in this 5-6 spot, it's too difficult. Because I know they've actually been better on the road, but it's just so hard to be able to have to win every single series on the road against some teams that may just be better. Like Oklahoma City, like I said, they've sneakily been 8-2 in their last 10. People have kind of stopped talking about them, but they haven't even been healthy, and they got Jared McCain for nothing. And at some point J-Dub will be back. But that is a good point that you mentioned, where all these teams are in a funk, but some of these teams are able to handle it better than others. The Spurs are 9-1 in their last 10. OKC is 8-2 in their last 10. Minnesota, like you said, sometimes CTE hoops,
Yeah.
but they're still 8-2 in their last 10. But like sometimes they have games where I'm like, what did I just witness? Like they just lost to Orlando. How?
Yeah.
Like
How and why? How and why?
yeah, like
There's no
that's
way.
insane. A shorthanded Magic team, right? Like the same Magic team where like like Paolo will be like, yeah, we play these games and like sometimes we don't know what we're doing. And then the coach is like, yeah, sometimes we don't know what it's like, no, we just don't play hard. And it's like, you have a scenario where like that guy might be out and like you lost to that team. That's wild. That's
I agree.
surprising. Yeah, so then we'll close it out. With that last team, right? And like this is yeah, no. And this is different because like we didn't view them in the same way as like Denver or Minnesota. But
Oh boy, this is gonna be
what the
fun.
heck happened to you know who I'm talking about? Like what like the smiling friends thing where the guy's like, you know who I'm talking like
Yeah.
what happened
Yeah.
to DeAndre Ayton?
DA.
Because the first couple months of the season, he actually played really well, but like since then, like I don't know if there's something in the LA waters. I know I don't usually sound like this, but I'm actually legitimately confused as to like what happened between like the first 2 months of the season and then like as of late, where it's like he doesn't even look like the same guy. And I know his role is kind of different, where it's like now he's not getting quite the same amount of shots. He's not getting them like in the areas consistently that he wants it in. It still doesn't make any sense in my opinion, right? 'Cause like, and then like I know the Denver game, he just was hurt and then left, and then like there was the reporting from Dave McMenamin where it's like, yeah, he left the game with knee soreness, but they don't know which knee it is. So I've never heard that before. Maybe I have, but I don't remember. It kind of was. I guess it was kind of like the D'Lo thing. Where do you remember when they first got him back and he would have games where he wouldn't play in the second halves,
Yeah.
like kind of like that. But like this one, I don't even. I don't know what happened. So and he's not the only guy, but it's just something to think about. Where it's like
Played 5
you know,
minutes.
yeah, and like you wouldn't have even known he was out there.
Nope.
Like when they said like that he left, it was like he was in the game.
Yep.
I didn't know that.
Yep. Did a whole lot
Yeah,
of nothing.
so that's kind of the question that like I have to ask because I don't know what happened to him. Because like like with some other guys, it's like you could say, like oh this guy like had like say like a Reeves where it's like oh he was out for like over a month with a calf injury and he's like back into the swing of things, or even like a LeBron like he was out for a month with back stuff. But like I don't know what happened to Aiton, which is kind of the crazy part because like I said, it felt like we were talking about him like almost every other episode like early on in the season because it was like he was averaging like what 16 and 8 some career numbers in terms of efficiency and whatnot, and then he's just kind of fallen off a cliff even in games where they win and he's playing. It doesn't even feel like he's helping.
Yeah.
It's almost like they're kind of winning in spite of him being out there. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And like I think it's also just kind of like the fit isn't really there. Like you can kind of see like say like when a Jackson Hayes comes into the game, like it's just a different style of play where
Yes.
it's like he's faster, he's running up and down the floor. You just throw the ball up and he just catches it. Like I mean, in the Denver game, it was pretty obvious, and it's not like that every game. And like you can't play him 30 minutes a game because he's gonna run out of gas. But just in general, it is something. Even a guy like a Maxi Klebo who will just kind of come out of nowhere and like every once in a while just start throwing down dunks. It's like where did this come from? So that's kind of one of the things that I don't really understand, and that's the other team to kind of watch out for because, like I said, their schedule is very difficult, and like Phoenix has the tiebreaker. So if they lose too many games, like they're not safe from the play-in either.
Yeah.
Honest.
I would agree with you. And
Yeah.
I yeah.
Do you know what happened to him? Because I don't know.
Motor.
Yeah.
That's what it is because in December we were talking about him like he was a freaking monster, right?
Yeah.
Alongside Reeves, and I think at that time Luka was also healthy as well.
Yeah, he was averaging like 40 a game,
Yeah.
which wasn't sustainable, but
Right, but
still.
like we were talking about them like holy crap, like not to say that they figured something out, but we were
Right.
like
They
this.
were playing better than what we thought. Because like
Yeah.
I know we were split on their over-unders. Neither of us viewed them as like a title contender.
No.
But it's like they were playing better, and some of those individual guys were playing better. But go on.
Yeah, it's just like, I it all goes back to the motor. This guy is unbelievably garbage. And I don't want to say it started when Braun came back, but I kind of do want to say that at the same time. Not to say
Mm,
that, there's a direct correlation in terms of
right.
his play, and I don't think
Yeah.
that necessarily impacted it, but in terms of the timing, I think
Yeah.
when Braun
It just
came.
moves him down the pecking order.
Exactly. So now there's less ball to go around to him, and we already know that he's kind of borderline ineffective when he's not getting the ball, not getting his touches that he wants, right? And that's why he said they're using me like Clint Capella or they're trying to turn me into Clint Capella. Brother, you're a freaking big man for the Los Angeles Lakers. Get rebounds and play defense. That should be your primary focus, right? Obviously the lob threat stuff can come, with playing with a guy like Luka, but I feel like you have to earn that right. You know what I'm saying? I don't think
Yeah.
you just come into the game and expect to just get the ball, right? Like at the end of the day, I'd prefer Luka Doncic have the ball in his hands than you. Same with Reeves and Braun. All three of them. Like you said, it knocks him down on the pecking order, and Jackson Hayes is okay with that. That's why there's an immediate, shift in
All right.
terms of what the heck is going on. Jackson Hayes will run the freaking floor and, all types of stuff. So I don't know. That guy he's something else, but
Yeah.
direct correlation to the downfall of the Lakers because he's not doing
Yeah.
anything.
Right. And even a couple other guys, like if you watch them, like say even like a Laravia, like who's played every game, but it feels like he might be running out of gas where it's like now he's airballing wide open threes. It's just weird. You know what I mean? Like and that's kind of the thing that has kind of been interesting to watch is like if you watch, like I know everybody points at the defense, but the offense like hasn't been as good as like what the selling point is. Like have you noticed it? Like like cuz say like even against the Nuggets, right? Like the first like the game was over basically after 2 minutes cuz they went the first 2 minutes and didn't score a single point,
Yeah.
right? And like they're kind of in that other category where there's like okay, there's stretches where like there's something there where it'll be like you'll run screens or sets like for a Luke Kennard and like, some, an upgrade over Gabe Vincent where he gets like a good look from 3 and then they move the ball around. But then there's other stretches where it's like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like even like some of the best players on the team, even like at times like a Luca or a Reeves or a Braun, where there's like a lot of forced ugly shots. You know what I mean? Or like just random stretches where it doesn't really compute in terms of like what's going on, right?
Yeah.
Like, even like a Smart at times, right? Like who's been a positive for the team. Like and I know that's part of his MO, but even like him, there's like a few stretches where it's like, why is he the one with the ball? Like that's kind of odd. That's kind of weird. But like, so do you think they fall into the play-in? Because that's kind of the ultimate question. So
Okay.
like,
Okay. Okay.
if you have Denver, you have LA, and you have Phoenix.
Uh,
And I don't know Phoenix's strength of schedule. They're like 10th. So they have a relatively tough schedule as well.
Here's what I think. I think
Okay.
Phoenix jumps,
Okay.
and I think Denver falls. I think
Really?
I think LA stays safe. I know that might be crazy considering that we just dogged the LA Lakers for not pretty much not having an identity, but I think health continues to nag the freaking Denver Nuggets, and I think they continue to play 500
Hmm.
basketball, if not less. I think there's a reality where Luca, maybe even Braun, can in tandem, kind of just backpack and spaz out in the final you know stretch of the season and get up to 5 maybe. But I think Phoenix is the one that comes out of here, and then Denver goes down.
Wow. I think that might be a hot take.
I'll take it.
That yeah, that might be a hot take because that's the thing is like I said, both of those teams haven't played very well as of late.
Hmm.
The Nuggets have the tougher schedule,
Hmm.
but the Lakers I think have been worse against good teams. The Nuggets haven't been great against good teams either, but I think the Lakers have been statistically worse. So that's kind of the thing to look at. And I guess like the case for them is like, well, their health situation isn't as bad, right? Because they don't have anybody who's like expected to miss extended stretch. Like I know LeBron hurt his elbow. He missed the second game of the back to back against the Pacers. I think he's listed as questionable, so he's not listed as out. But with the Nuggets, like even some of the guys that just came back, like they're gonna have to get their legs back under them. Like even with the Aaron Gordon, like it's a hamstring injury. Like that's an injury where if he hurts it again, like then that's probably it.
Yeah.
Because I mean this is kind of the stretch point of the season where you really can't afford to have any more injuries if you're one of these teams. That's kind of looking to make a push for the playoffs. And, if the Nuggets do fall into the play-in, that completely changes, the Western Conference playoffs, right? Because they were expected to be one of the top teams. And if they're in the bottom half of the playoff bracket, then all of a sudden that completely shakes things up. Like, say right now they're 5, so they would play Minnesota, who's been playing better as of late. Now the Nuggets have been better than the Wolves this season, like in terms of when they play each other. But at the same time, like this Nuggets team, right, that isn't as healthy, like they could lose to Minnesota. Like if the playoffs were like today, like they'd probably lose.
Yeah.
Even with as weird as Minnesota can look. And then even if they got out of there alive, they got to beat Oklahoma City, right? Who's had their number this year, right? Like we saw them play in an overtime game. We haven't talked about it, but Lou Dort, my bad.
All right.
Um, accidentally trips Jokic, right? Like, like they've had Denver's number this year. And I know both teams haven't been fully healthy, but that's my point. OKC hasn't been either.
Yeah.
So like they're like it feels like they might just be the sleeping giant. Because like, even the Spurs, like, I love how they've been this year. I'm just so scared to pick I would not feel comfortable picking them to win the West just because of the fact that like they have no playoff experience. Like they can beat any of those 7 to 10 teams in the first round. Like, so I would say that they should win the first round matchup, but getting out of the West might be a little bit difficult. But if they don't have to face Denver and they just have to face OKC, who they've played pretty well in the regular season, like, can I rule it out? I can't.
They're not coming out of here.
But I would say, like, as of right now, if OKC's health trends upwards, then I might just have to say, like, you know what, you guys got it. Like, y'all got it. But I still have to see them healthy because we haven't seen J-Dub healthy yet, right? Like he's also had a hamstring injury, but it's gonna get pretty crazy the last stretch of the season because, like I said, nobody has wrapped up a playoff spot yet. Like I think OKC and San Antonio, I think they get the 1 and 2 spot. It's just a matter of who's 1 and 2. Probably OKC because I think as they get healthier, they're just gonna stay ahead of the Spurs. But everybody else is like right there. I mean, like even like a Phoenix is like 3 games behind like Minnesota and Houston. So I'm not, and they're not going to get up to the top 5. I'm just saying like that's why like it's not like a crazy thing to say could Phoenix get into the top 6 because it's so jumbled, right? Like there is a chance that they could get in there, right? It's
my
like
point, bro.
You could see.
I think it's gonna happen, bro.
You
I
could
honestly think
see
it's gonna
Jalen
happen.
Green revenge series against
Oh, oh God.
You could see it. Like, yeah, I'm just saying, like, that's a shout out to how Phoenix has been this season, right?
Mhm.
Because, like, say even if they don't make the top 6, like, they're super happy with how the season went.
Absolutely.
I'm sure they don't love the injuries at the end, but like they view their season as a success. Because what did Matt Ishbia say? He was like, all you experts thought we would be good. Now you're saying we're going to be bad. Watch this, and it's like now they're actually a good team.
Yeah.
So like they do have a chance. And I forgot to mention Phoenix. I said they had the 10th hardest, but I didn't say who they played. Or OKC, San Antonio, Boston, Houston, Minnesota, Denver. Those are their toughest. And then easiest opponents: Pacers, Jazz, Mavs, Grizzlies, Bulls, Bucks twice. It's kind of wild that like the Bucks now like are in a spot where like they would be on like the easiest opponents tier.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, but and like I said, we don't have to say a whole lot about the bottom 5 because, like I said, that's the nice thing about the West. Like after 10, you're done. It's over.
Yeah.
It's over.
Yeah.
So, anything else worth mentioning, or what do you think about the that brand or that spot in the West?
It's gonna be a bloodbath, especially for the 7th spot. I think that's the one that I think people are gonna probably have some thoughts on once that's been settled. But we still have a little bit of time to go till we do get there, so a lot can change in 20-ish games. So we'll see what happens. But I'm not too enthusiastic about some of those teams.
Yeah, and it looks like we got word that Maxey is going to get X-rays on his finger, because he got hurt in the Hawks game. So, that's
Philly,
not great.
Philly, you might be cooked, buddy.
Yeah, if he has to miss extended time, then I would say then that's probably right. And you traded away Jared McCain, so if Maxey has to miss like a couple weeks, I'm not saying he will, but if he has to miss time, good luck. That's all I'm gonna say.
No depth pieces. Oh no, bro.
Yeah, it's gonna be like you might have to have Kyle Lowry running point guard at that point.
Does he even play? I swear he
I
gets
don't.
DNPs, bro.
I mean, yeah, at this point he's more so like, kind of like a
Locker room.
coach, yeah, locker room guy.
Yeah.
But I don't, yeah. So like, yeah, he still didn't play even after Maxi played 37 minutes.
Holy cow.
So yeah, so that means Cameron Payne. That's who they have. I just checked. Campaign.
Is that much
That guy.
better? No. Okay,
Well,
cool. Got it.
I mean, what else? What else do you got? I mean, like I said, they traded away Jared McCain, so that might go down. I'm not gonna say like all time worst trade because that would be too cruel, but like that's a rough one, especially like I said now with the injury situations and like yeah, I get it in the sense of like you got Edgecombe, so you can't really have all those guys, but like, did you have to trade him now? Could you have at least waited until the
Waited.
summer?
Yeah, and what he said
Maybe.
sold high. Yeah, okay, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Give me a break.
either, either way, that's it for today's episode of All Fault Takes. Again, let us know your thoughts in the comments about what you think of the latter part of the Eastern Conference and Western Conference brackets. Who do you think, falls out? Who do you think stays in? And then, the playoffs are almost here. Like we're basically a month away. It's going to be fun and all that. So if you want to leave comments on any of our things, or if you want to join in any of our polls, go to the OBT podcast. And if you can like and subscribe to help the channel grow. Appreciate all the support. We'll see you next episode.